do I feel about it today? Looking back on those days? Well, it's coming up on 30 years ago, and it still seems like yesterday. It was truly the best of times and the worst of times. So, in 1929, the year the market crashed, my great-uncles started one fur store that they grew into many, becoming the largest retail specialty outerwear company in the U.S. They brought my grandfather in shortly after he married their sister, and he brought my father in for a short time before my parents divorced. It was kind of predetermined for me. I think the one thing that sticks out for me, different from all the other legacy employees I worked with there, who were following in their parents' or grandparents' footsteps as well, is that my family, lives were lost because of the stress of it all, because of our connection to this. We were just a group of wannabe business people growing up with hope in an industry that was about to smack us down before we could get there. So, combined with my own personal regrets, that's what lingers for me. Beginning in the early 80s, there was a pending sense of doom, but desperation settled in over every move we made, every conversation we had. In our hearts, I think many of us now, we'd admit that we felt it coming. And for me at least, no amount of fun, alcohol, or drugs could mask what was going on, and there was plenty of it all. It challenged the human spirit day in and day out, and was unlike anything I'd seen before or have seen since. I don't know if I'd say we flew too close to the sun, because if that was the case, we would have burnt up a lot sooner. We pulled every gimmick we had out of the playbook to try and reverse course. From sales to celebrities, none of it worked. Our plane was in an irreversible tailspin. The first time, it was just a handful of protesters outside on Black Friday, but you felt protected by the physical barrier of the store itself. By the time they were chaining themselves to the racks and handcuffing themselves to the fixtures, we knew we were sunk. Our passion for what we did paled in comparison to their commitment to their cause. Lessons learned? Well, we all now know that when you get to the top of the highest peak, there's only one direction that you can go. The strength of a family, like the strength of an army, lies in its loyalty to each other. Mario Puzo. In every conceivable manner, the family is a link to our past, bridge to our future. Alex Haley. In 1912, Julius Meltzer left Belarus to join his brothers in Philadelphia. It wasn't long before he summoned his wife Rose and their 4 children, which would soon grow to 6, to join him. By 1929, with their mother Rose retired to bed to stay, the oldest daughter, Thelma, was sent to finishing school to learn to help care for the family. 2 of the boys were on their way to star law careers, and the other 2, led by A.L. Mel Meltzer, who later brought in brother Herman, were building what would become the first Furrier in America to become a public company before falling prey to time in generational shifts. Because tragedy, both personally and professionally, was lying in wait and checking in for an extended stay, decades. And the Meltzers, beginning in 1936, would never be the same again. The tragedy train stayed in the station, even though very prosperous times for the remaining siblings were afoot. But money doesn't care who has it, and the Meltzer clan would be struck down again 30 years later and then again almost 30 years after that. Two of the children and a great-grandchild of Rose and Julius Meltzer were victims of suicide. Coincidence? Epigenetics? Generational tyranny? Will we ever know? However, a deep sense of sharing existed between surviving siblings, the bond deeper than the average set of sibling relationships, formed under tremendously difficult upbringings, all of which led to various children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews all joining Evans Furs at one time or another, including myself, where I began as a stock boy in 1975 and worked in various locations around the country for the company until 1995.
Don't worry, you didn't miss it.
A large part of A.L. Meltzer's strategy for expanding Evans Furs in the 1950s involved putting Evans Furs concessions or leased departments in some of the finest department stores around the country, just as commerce in the nation was shifting outward from city downtowns to the growing suburbs. The boom was apparently on when brother-in-law Harold Sussman, husband of sister Thelma Meltzer, was sent to Boston to expand the operation in a move that would foretell much of the growth legacy of Evans Furs for the next 50 years. In taking family from the corporate and family headquarters and relocating them, A.L. Meltzer was signaling how important this strategy was. The concept of having a concession in a department store allowed Evans Furs to have a physical footprint in key targeted cities without the overhead expense, all while allowing Evans to take advantage of the foot traffic brought in by the local host store.
They called me in the office and they had to call corporate Evans and they said, who's this guy? Jeff Becker's telling us that we have to give him space in our store.
The relationships were often complicated, but at the end of the day, were driven by numbers and money. Field general managers, of which I, myself, was one, in both San Francisco and Los Angeles, had to juggle serving two masters, keeping both corporate management at Evans and at the host store happy enough to keep both Evans and you, the general manager, continuing on there.
They helped us, they got us, the space we need in these stores. And we were doing business, so they loved that. It helped them get to their store numbers.
However, in the long run, time was not on Evans' side as a seismic shift changed consumer sentiment towards fur, and when combined with the industry destroying the luxury product positioning that took it decades to build, it was no longer aspirational when furs began mass assembly line production and were made affordable to everyone. Prior to that, though, the strategy, which would be continued by future CEOs David Meltzer, son of the founder, and Robert Meltzer, grandson of the founder, helped Evans grow into greater than a 100-location powerhouse, bringing in annual revenue of over $150 million. That is, until rapidly declining sales forced the bottom to drop out, and Evans would begin a multi-year decline, culminating in its shutdown and asset sale in 1999, 70 years after A.L. Meltzer founded the business.
We loved what we did, and we wanted to go out and, make things happen.
The combination of changes in the economy, changes in social mores, changes basically in our culture, really put a damper on the entire fur industry.
Evans was hardly the only family-owned and operated multi-store chain across the country during the 1950s and 60s. Relationships like those had between Evans Furs and Sakowitz department stores of Houston, Texas, Specifically, showed the power of combining multiple powerhouses into something that, for Evans Furs, brought it into the luxurious southwest territory of Sakowitz.
The French have a great expression, on cherche le créneau, look for the crack, and then drive a wedge in it.
Sakowitz, which, based in Texas and with its own long family history, was one of the major moves made by David Meltzer, son of the founder A.L. Meltzer, when he became CEO of Evans Furs, because acquiring the lease to run the fur salons in Sakowitz was special, because in the golden age of retail, Sakowitz was more than just a store.
My grandfather and great uncle moved up to Houston and expanded with Houston as Houston grew. In 1949, it was growing so much and Houston was growing so much, they wanted to really build a wonderful new store.
If there was one thing Robert Sakowitz learned during his European education, was the benefit of having concessions or leased departments.
If you go to Europe, even today with China, most of the stores would lease out space. It was just a vertical mall, giving them the equivalent of stores within a store.
Armed with a partnership that would give Evans Furs valuable entree into the oil-rich Southwest while giving Sakowitz a luxury outerwear fur department in great demand, both companies flourished and continued onward with their plans for growth.
And we had a very nice business in Houston because people traveled, and they knew that a good fur coat was a great symbol of success.
Capitalizing on ways to expand their businesses in tandem, both companies looked to the internet of yesteryear, the mail-order catalog business.
And the golden age of catalogs was in this period of roughly 1970 to 1990, 95.
The Sakowitz holiday catalog rivaled even that of more well-known Neiman Marcus, and Evans Furs provided Robert Sakowitz with the juice to make a serious holiday statement.
And I said to David, what's the most expensive fur in the world that would be totally unique? And he said, clearly, Robert, it's a Russian Crown Borgazine sable.
Further showcasing the teamwork the two businesses displayed together, the quick-thinking Sakowitz came up with a solution that David Meltzer and Evans Furs could afford to support.
Said, okay, what if I can pre-sell it beforehand? Said, you get it pre-sold, we're going to Leningrad together. We went through and we'd go through and grade, and I learned more about the fur business in those 3 days than anybody ever could.
And as my grandfather, who also worked for Evans Furs for over 50 years, used to tell me, good times don't last, but good people do. And by the 1980s, the fur business was caught between numerous paradigm shifts from which it would not recover.
In the fur business, PETA had a lot to do with it. The fur business began to drop off in our part of the world when the economy shifted. Along came other aspects of this. The country became overmauled. Internet came along.
But prior to that, Evans Furs and Sakowitz department stores enjoyed tremendous success in partnership together, with both companies growing to over $150 million in sales revenue.
We boomed in the 70s. All of the oil-producing states. People had a lot of money. They bought furs. They bought couture. That was the era, I would say, the golden era of department stores and specialty stores.